With this unique deck, your opponents won't be able to keep their commanders around for long. And here's another installment of Think Outside the Deck Box. Welcome back everyone. This is my unique take on a Gruul ramp and control deck, if you want to call it like this. Let's look at the commanders first. This is a pEDH deck, but can be upgraded in any way to your liking with any rares or mythics, but I want to show you how powerful a pauper deck can be, devastating any normal table, any casual table that you would play in. So this is Erinis, Gloom Stalker. For 3 you get a 3/3 Deathful Touch Halfling Ranger, and whenever she attacks you return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield. So nothing too exciting at the first glance, but let's look at the second card here, the partner card, the background. So Street Urchin, for 2 you get an enchantment, and your commander can let you pay 1 and sacrifice another creature or enchantment and then deal 1 damage to any target. And the important part is that this creature, the commander, deals the damage, and she has Death Touch. So the idea is you can fling any of your creatures or artifacts to deal exactly 1 damage with your commander to any of your opponent's creatures, enabling you to remove any of their troublesome commanders or powerful creatures at any point in time. You always keep some like 2-3 mana open to be able to just remove stuff that you don't like, to hinder your opponent to use their commanders effectively or their big bulky creatures that might cause problems later on. Now let's look a little bit deeper into the deck. I split the deck into different categories. We got some few removal cards, some ramp cards, some card draw cards, some sack me cards that make use of the sacking ability with Street Urchin, some payoffs, some protection spells, as well as reanimation or recursion spells, and some very unique lands. You see Quicksand here, that's just the beginning. Like, there are some interesting lands that function very well with the commander Erinis here. Now, let's start out with the removal pile. We got a very fun artwork here with Night Soil, a card I really think is underplayed and fun to use. Like, you have a 2 mana enchantment, and you can pay 1 at any time. Again, useful since you want to keep some mana open. You can also use this ability then if you don't have anything in creature form that you want to remove. You can remove 2 creatures from any graveyard and create a 1/1 Saproling token for that. Now, this Saproling token again can then be used to be flinged again with Erinis Street Urchin, and yeah, you can continue removing on, and at some point also removing these creatures, get some Saprolings back. So very, very useful removal card for graveyard stuff, and creates you fodder for the ability of your commander. Abrade, classic removal card, has 2 modes, nothing much to say here. Nature's Claim, I think it is in English. For a green, you can remove an artifact or enchantment and give the controller 4 life, because Erinis can deal with creatures without any problems, but artifacts and enchantments we still want to be able to remove. We have a minor board wipe, which I just found cute, but also is a big dragon later on. So we have 2 modes here. The Crashing Drawbridge I didn't know where exactly to put, but this gives haste to your commander, and being able to just attack 1 turn earlier when you cast her can be very powerful. I didn't want to include too many of these haste enablers, but you can also sack it later on if you don't think you need it anymore. So it just has many uses, and this can be pulled off every turn. You cast the dragon, for example, give it haste later, so that is nice. And lastly, also removal, I guess player removal. You can enchant your commander to deal 5 damage and trample now, and when this goes to the graveyard you can put it back into your hand, and Rancor is just such a strong card. And yeah, sadly you cannot sack it with Erinis, but you can be able to deal the commander damage that your opponents need to take them out of the game. Now, ramp. We want to be able to cast Erinis as early as turn 2 if we're able to. I did not include Lotus Petal this time since it's just cheaper that way in money terms, but if you want to go a little bit further, you can also put that in. We have Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic here, Fyndhorn Elves, as well as the Boreal Druid, all able to create 1 mana when we tap them, and that's just what we need to be able to cast her at turn 2. Then we have Expedition Map here, which is able to get us the important lands from our deck. The idea is that we have some fetch land, like let's say Evolving Wilds or so. We fetch it, we get a land into play, and then we attack with our commander and are able to put this land back into the battlefield and fetch it again and get another land out of our library. And sometimes we don't start with a fetch land, we have enough in there, but this also can fetch us the important lands that we need at any time, so it's a very powerful card. Mindstone, nothing much to say here, you know it, you love it. Goblin Anachromancer just reduces the cost of other spells that you cast here that are not artifacts. And Springbloom Druid is able to sack the lands that you might not need anymore and are able to later on reanimate again with your commander. Next up, card draw. Snake Umbra is also a protection card because it gives totem armor, but it gives you a card whenever your commander deals damage, and no one really wants to block a Death Touch creature, so you most of the time just are able to smack your opponent's faces with your commander and then just draw a card as well, and that's just beautiful. Bonner's Ornament, another slow card draw card if you're desperate. I can actually tell you that most of the time your hand is quite full, but you can also use it as a mana rock and as a sack outlet if you want to sack it. With your Street Urchin, the Filigree Familia, you can sack to draw a card with your commander, so both the abilities are easy to achieve. Similarly, the other fox, the Clockwork Fox here, can be used to do some nice politicking to be able to give you and an opponent 2 cards. Now, I'm also playing with the initiative. I can show on screen what it does. I'm not going to read through all of it, but at some point you're able to get quite some value out of it. Even at the first step, you're able to just fetch a land out of your library, if I'm not mistaken, and that's just value already. And since we're able to smack our opponent every turn, most of the time, we're also able to just get the initiative back again, so we don't mind if we're losing it. And also another sack fodder if we actually don't need it anymore, since these 2 creatures, this also just gives the initiative we don't need anymore, though it's a 5/4, so we might just want to smack face with that one as well. Now the Crimson Fleet Commodore gives us the Monarch, which lets us draw an extra card at the end of turn, and can also go around the table whenever someone hits us, but again, we're able to get the crown back with our commander most of the time, so we're not worried, mostly fearing that our opponent might keep the crown, no. Entourage as well, we can also sack it if we don't need it, and this can block some multiple creatures, most importantly the Monarch. And then we have some looting cards. Since we don't mind much if lands hit the graveyard, our commander can get it back again. We can just draw through our deck, discard the lands that we don't need that we can reanimate later, and keep the important cards that we actually want to play. The Network Terminal is a mana rock, but also another looting card. And then we have these 2 cards, which are the same effect, but also allow us to create some treasure tokens. We don't really need some extra ramp, but these treasures we can also use to remove our opponent's creatures with the Street Urchin ability. And it also filters our hand. Now, the Sack Me pile. This is an interesting creature that I haven't really used at all, ever. Not even in a Murdic I would put it, but in this deck it is quite hilarious. So for 3 you get a 1/1 mirror that taps to turn any of your lands into an artifact. Why would you do that, you ask? Now, we have Street Urchin that allows us to sack artifacts to deal 1 damage with our commander. So now we're even able to sack one of our lands that we might just want to reanimate or don't need at that moment to again kill an opponent's creature. So we don't have to kill our creatures or artifacts if we just want to keep all of them around. This is a really nice card, and the first time I've actually used this one. We have some creatures that enter and give us some more value that we can later sack, either for mana. In this case, with the Eldrazi spawns, we have several that just enter, give us more spawns that we can sack for mana. Useful again if we get our commander removed at some point and want to cast it again. So this also reduces the mana, but these all give us some fodder that we can then later sacrifice. Then we have the Pilferer that just gives us a treasure when it dies, and it has Encore. So we get some more treasures and more goblins. Myrrsire, if it dies, we get a Myr. Gleaming Barrier, if it dies, we get a treasure. Myconoid, if it enters or dies, we get a Saproling. It is also a ramp dude, so that's nice addition. But we can sack all of these 3 cards to also deal with our opponent's creatures. And you see, like, your opponent won't keep much of their creatures on the board, many of their creatures on the board, so it can get quite frustrating for the opponent. Don't play this deck too often, or, well, play it as a challenge to see if your opponent is able to deal with that deck at some point. So if it dies, we get a treasure, or if it enters. This also gets us a land into our hand, a basic land, if it enters or dies. And this one draws a card and does that also at both points if it enters or dies. This one creates a construct token when it enters or dies, and Sticky Fingers gives us also menace to our commander, and we create a treasure whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent. And when it dies, the creature, we also draw a card. So then we also disencourage our opponent to remove our commander, even though it is so powerful. So now they're at an impasse and have to choose if they want to let us draw a card then. Now the Enforcers is really nice because it has Myriad, and we can also sack the created tokens before they get exiled, so even more fodder whenever this creature attacks any of our opponents that cannot block. And we remove the creatures first and then attack and get more fodder. Sprout Swarm, we can just put in 5 mana. We can also tap some creatures to create a whole bunch of Saproling tokens throughout the game. So if we don't have much to remove, we just create more and more saplings, which are fodder for our commander, but also can kill our opponent at some point. Really cool card in my opinion, and these created Saprolings can also pay for the convoke costs again. Shiny Impetus makes our commander bigger and goads it. We want to attack every turn actually, so whatever. And whenever it attacks, we create a treasure that we can also sack for mana or for killing a creature. Glittermonger creates a treasure every turn. Hoarding Ogre creates at least 1 treasure every turn and deals some damage. And I just love the grin of this ogre. Now, Sporemount lastly on this pile here creates a Saproling whenever we put a land onto the battlefield, and as I said, we have a bunch of fetch lands in this deck, so many times this creates at least 2, maybe even 3 Saprolings in 1 turn, and that's really nice, really powerful to be able to have 3 more tokens that function as fodder or damage dealers. Some payoff. Now, Spitfire Lagak deals 1 damage whenever a land enters, so this is the damage dealer equivalent to the Spore Mound, and can deal up to 3 damage every turn probably, dealing with our opponent's life points. This says whenever a card or more leave our graveyard, and Erinis will let lands leave our graveyard, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, so Fuming Effigy, also a really nice card to continuously chop down our opponent's life points. And Reckless Fireweaver does the same, dealing 1 damage whenever we create an artifact or have an artifact enter. So we're creating a whole bunch of treasures, as you've already seen, and the Reckless Fireweaver will also do its job, dealing a whole bunch of damage. Now, some even nicer payoff is this Fangren here, which gives us 5 life whenever anyone has one of their artifacts put into their graveyard. 5 life points per artifact. So your opponents have some treasures, they sack it, we get 5 life per treasure that they sack. We have a bunch of treasures. Whenever we sack a treasure or any artifact, we gain 5 life. So this can get out of hand really fast. Keep that in mind. It's powerful. It's a 5/5. It costs 6 though, so it's not the most easy to cast card, But again, we have these Eldrazi's and these treasures. It will be possible, and then we get like easy 100 life throughout the game just by people losing their artifacts or us sacking our artifacts into the Street Urchin ability. 2 more piles before we look at the unique lands. We have Fortitude here, which I think is unknown and actually a beautiful protection card. It is enchanting our commander for 2 most of the time, and we can sack a forest at any time to regenerate our commander. And we don't mind sacking lands because most of the time we get 2 lands per turn, and we can just reanimate those again. And this also has the rancor effect stapled onto it, so if it goes to the graveyard, we actually get it back to our hand. So even if it is enchanted onto our commander is destroyed, we get Fortitude back. If we didn't have a forest to sack, I don't know when that would happen, but you know, if someone destroys that one, Fortitude, we get it back, so you can't really get rid of it. So maybe you want to consider putting this into your green deck, because if your commander is important, it is most of the time also worth sacking a land. Snakeskin Veil, we have a bunch of 1-mana protection spells here, so we're gonna go quickly through them. Hexproof is the important part here. Tamiyo's Safekeeping Hexproof, Indestructible, important, any permanent actually. Then again Hexproof and Indestructibility. Indestructibility with this one, and Rapid Vigor also regenerates our whole board, so if someone plays a board wipe, we can actually save our entire creature army. And lastly, the Whisper Silk Cloak, to be able to really make sure that our commander gets through, also to protect it. But yeah, if they have like a bigger first strike creature, we want to just make sure to be able to also get through and get our ramp still going. Recursion, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, by the way. If you watched till this point, I think it's time to subscribe, right? Now, the Kami of Industry is an interesting boy. For 5, you get to return an artifact card with mana value 3 or less and give it haste, and then you have to sack it again. And you've already seen some interesting ones if you want to look back. I think, what did I want to show? For example, yeah, this Wellspring, for example, which enters and leaves, is already very useful. We can also have any of these artifacts, again, Clockwork Fox, for example, you name it. You want to be able to return these cards that also give you some upside when they die, and the Kami of Industry is a wonderful reanimator here with a big booty. Mirror Retriever and the Assistant, both of them return an artifact when they die, so similar to the Industry guy, but just to our hand. So anything important, maybe the Silk Cloak died and we want to return it. Evolution Charm has many modes, but the most important one again will be to return a creature to our hand from our graveyard. Revive the Shire returns any permanent card from our graveyard and creates a token that we can later sack. For Street Urchin, Revive, I think it is in English, just returns a green card from our graveyard, and the Wildwood Rebirth returns a creature card. So even if someone is able to get rid of our commander, we can return it with most of these cards. Now, stay here for the lands, because these are not to be underestimated. Quicksand is a card that I have never played before, and in this deck it's actually useful. So it's just a colorless mana that enters untapped, so that's nice, but you can actually sack it to give a attacking creature without flying -1, -2. Most people will forget that you have this one because it's so weird and wonky and no one plays it. And you can actually kill a lot of War Elves with this one if someone just didn't watch out for this. But also any creature that you want to get rid of with this land, and then you can return it with your commander. So that's like kind of like a Mace of Ith, but actually removing the attacking creature. Cradle of the Accursed is the next one, which continuously will give us 2/2 zombies when we sack it for 3 and tap it, and then we can return it with our commander, reanimating this land over and over again, giving us black zombies for our black zombie army that we're building now. Haunted Fengraf gives us a random creature, and I think is quite underplayed and should be played in more decks, because most of the time you only have like 2 or 3 creatures that most of them you just want, so why not put it in and then reanimate it with Erinis, right? Hunter's Mace and the Autonomous Furnace both of them enter tapped, tap for a color mana, and then you can sack it to draw a card. So reanimating these will always get us drawing, and the Razor's Ring is a duel that also has the ability to be sacked to draw a card. Then these two Mercadian Masks land, which enter with depletion counters. If they don't have any on them, they have to be sacked, but whenever you tap it for mana, you actually add 2 and remove a counter. So you don't really mind that they die because you can reanimate the land again and then they tap for 2. So also quite powerful in this deck. And then I said a whole bunch of fetch lands. Now we have Evolving Wilds here and Terramorphic Expanse. Both of them should be known, they do the same. Then many of the Streets of Capenna lands. We have the Maestro's Theater, Riveteer's Outlook, Broker's Hideout. We also play some Panoramas, Naya, Jund, and Band Panorama. All of them fetch lands, filling our graveyard again by sacking them, getting us a basic land from our deck, and triggering some of the land guys that give us some payoffs by sacking lands or entering lands. Artifact lands, we had the land mirror here, the land shaper. Now these are artifacts already and we can just sack them for Erinis, flinging these lands into our opponent's creatures' faces and killing them with these 3. This one is even indestructible if someone tries to destroy them or whatever. Not really worried about that. Oh, that's the 4th one, correct, the Darksteel Citadel. We have the Gingerbread Cabin. You could also include the red one, but I didn't. I just didn't find a place for it, which also gives you a dwarf if you have 3 or more other mountains. This one gives a food. Both of them allow you to just sack the token that is created with the Street Urchin to deal with a pesky creature. Colony Garden creates a token when it enters. Command Tower you already know, and then we have the Tranquil Thicket and the Forgotten Cave, which we both can cycle and then later reanimate with our commander. And now we have 5 more mountains and 5 more forests that look just beautiful, and I want to hear from you which cards you would have included in this Erinis Gloom Stalker Street Urchin Pauper deck. Help me reach the 1000 subscriber mark and supporting the channel by clicking those 2 buttons, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a beautiful day and bring a friend to Magic. Bye bye!